There are moments when silence is the only language left that doesn't betray you. You've spoken, explained, justified, begged for understanding, and yet nothing changed. So now, you sit in the quiet, realizing that sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. You begin to see that not every battle is fought with words. Some are won with stillness. A stillness that confuses those who thrive on your reaction. A silence that protects your dignity when everything else feels like it's falling apart. There's a kind of power in restraint, a quiet, steady strength that watches the storm but does not chase it. You may have been taught that goodness means always giving, always understanding, always forgiving. But what if that belief was the very reason people felt they could take from you without consequence? What if your kindness became your camouflage, hiding your exhaustion, your unspoken rage, your silent heartbreak? People often mistake silence for weakness. They think that the one who walks away is afraid. But the truth is, walking away without explanation takes more strength than any confrontation ever could. You're not avoiding conflict. You're choosing peace over chaos. You're no longer trying to convince others of your worth. You're letting your absence speak where your words no longer matter. And that is where true power begins, not in dominance, not in manipulation, but in the calm certainty that you no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. That's how Machiavelli's darkest wisdom softens into light. The understanding that silence isn't cruelty, and distance isn't pride. It's simply clarity. It's knowing that your energy is sacred, your peace is precious, and your truth does not need to be shouted to be real. In this space of quiet awakening, you'll learn the art of seeing without reacting, of knowing without exposing, of loving without losing yourself. You'll understand that sometimes, to win, you must stop playing the game entirely. And as you listen now, let each word remind you strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "You've had enough." If these words find a reflection in your heart, if they echo something you've quietly felt but couldn't name, stay. This space is for you. A moment of truth in a world that too often rewards noise over meaning. If it helps you breathe a little easier, if it touches something honest within you, I invite you to hold it and maybe, later, to share it or to subscribe, not out of habit, but because it reminds you that you're not alone. You learned early that goodness was a form of survival. Be kind, be soft, be understanding, and maybe they won't leave. Maybe they'll see your heart and treat it gently. But the truth no one told you is that the world doesn't always reward softness. It often consumes it. People take what they need from the gentle ones because they assume you'll always forgive, always stay, always understand. You told yourself you were being patient, but deep down, you were afraid. Afraid that if you ever stood up, spoke out, or said no, love would vanish. You smiled through betrayal, excused cruelty, and convinced yourself that silence meant peace. But it wasn't peace. It was self-abandonment dressed as harmony. You silenced your truth because the sound of disapproval scared you more than your own unhappiness. You mistook acceptance for love, but they are not the same. Acceptance without respect is surrender, and love without boundaries is a slow kind of death. One day, the exhaustion becomes louder than your fears. The weight of pretending becomes unbearable, and something in you, quiet but unbreakable, begins to whisper, "No more." You start to notice how people reveal themselves in the smallest ways, the tone they use when they think you won't speak back, the way they change when your silence no longer means compliance. And suddenly, you see them as they are, not as you hoped they would be. That's when you realize, seeing clearly is its own kind of power. You stop fighting to prove your worth. You no longer chase explanations. You begin to watch instead of react, to observe instead of absorb. The moment you stop trying to control how others see you, something shifts. The balance of power tilts quietly in your favor. Because now, your peace no longer depends on their approval. You don't need to win the argument when you've already won your freedom. Silence, when chosen from strength, becomes a mirror. It forces others to face themselves without the comfort of your explanations. Some will grow uncomfortable. They'll call you cold, detached, heartless. But that's only because your silence exposes the truth they've been avoiding. They can't manipulate what they can't provoke, and so they crumble under their own noise, while you remain untouched. Machiavelli once said it's better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But what he meant, when stripped of the armor of politics, was this: it's better to be respected than adored, because respect sustains, adoration fades. You've seen it how quickly affection turns to apathy when you stop serving someone's needs. But respect, once earned through quiet strength, cannot be stolen. It settles in the bones of your presence. The way people hesitate before crossing your boundaries now, sensing something different, something unshakable. The world teaches you to shout to be heard, but there's another way. You can choose silence not as retreat, but as command. You can learn to let your energy do the talking. People listen differently when you stop explaining. They feel your absence, your calm, your refusal to be drawn back into chaos. Silence, in its purest form, is not emptiness. It's space for truth to echo, for dignity to breathe, for healing to begin. You start to realize that winning doesn't mean getting the last word. It means not needing it. It means sleeping at night with a clean heart, knowing you didn't betray yourself just to be understood. That is power, quiet, steady, holy power. So, if you're in that space now, holding your tongue, holding your ground, know this: you are not weak. You are wise. The world may not see it yet, but you've already won something greater than validation. You've won yourself. There comes a time when the illusion breaks, when you finally see that not everyone loves you for who you are. Some love the way you make them feel. Some love the reflection of themselves they find in your eyes. And some, if you're honest, love the fact that you never ask for more. That's when the silence deepens. Not the kind that suffocates, but the kind that frees. The kind that says, I see you. I just choose not to play anymore. You start to understand that life isn't about being the nicest person in the room. Niceness is often a disguise for fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood. True kindness, the kind that heals instead of harms, doesn't bow. It doesn't shrink itself to make others comfortable. It stands tall, steady, and firm. It speaks softly, but carries truth like a blade made of light. You've spent so long trying to be good that you forgot what it means to be strong. And yet, strength and goodness aren't enemies, they're twins, separated by misunderstanding. Strength says, I love you, but I love me too. Strength says, I'll forgive, but I won't forget who I became while you weren't looking. Strength knows when to walk away, not in anger, but in dignity. It's the quiet revolution of the soul that says, my peace is not up for negotiation. There's something profoundly Machiavellian about that kind of grace, because Machiavelli, in his ruthless wisdom, never preached cruelty for its own sake. He simply understood that the world is not kind to those who refuse to see its shadows. He believed that survival required clarity, the courage to see things as they are, not as we wish them to be. And so must you. You cannot love someone's potential while ignoring their patterns. You cannot keep pouring yourself into a void and calling it virtue. Seeing people clearly isn't cynicism, it's self-respect. You can love deeply and still protect your heart. You can forgive and still draw lines that no one crosses twice. This is how you win without a fight. You stop begging for closure. You stop explaining your worth, and you start observing with quiet discernment. You realize that people show you who they are not through apologies, but through patterns. And when they do, you stop arguing with the evidence. You learn to be both lion and fox, the lion who stands unshaken by storms, and the fox who moves with silent precision through the forest of human intention. The lion roars when necessary, but the fox knows that not every threat deserves a sound. Together, they embody a balance you were never taught. The power of presence and the wisdom of restraint. You don't need to fight every battle. You just need to choose which ones are worth your peace. That's how silence wins. It's not the absence of action. It's the art of deliberate inaction. It's knowing that sometimes the best way to disarm someone's chaos is to give it nothing to feed on. When you stop reacting, you stop bleeding energy into places that no longer deserve it. Your silence becomes the end of their control, the unraveling of their illusions. And though they may never admit it, your peace unsettles them more than your anger ever could. You begin to see your silence as sacred, a boundary, a shield, a language of its own. You learn that speaking less doesn't mean feeling less. It means your heart has grown too wise to waste its pulse on noise. You no longer chase apologies. You offer closure to yourself. You no longer fight for attention. You give yourself the validation you kept waiting for. You no longer try to change people. You change the way you respond to them. And that's when something magical happens. You start attracting people who don't need to be convinced to treat you right. Your silence no longer scares them. It soothes them. They feel safe around your calm, your clarity, your quiet strength. Because real ones recognize peace when they see it. They don't take your silence as distance, they see it as depth. And so, in a world obsessed with noise, you become rare, someone who wins not by shouting louder, but by standing still. Someone who doesn't need to prove anything because their presence already speaks volumes. You've mastered the ancient, elegant art of restraint, and in doing so, you've become untouchable. There's a strange kind of loneliness that comes when you begin to see the truth. You notice the little manipulations, the way people twist words, the way they smile while taking something from you, time, energy, peace. It hurts, not because you didn't expect it, but because you once believed you were immune to it. You thought your love could change people. You thought your patience could soften them. You thought your sincerity would be enough to make them stay. But truth has its own rhythm, and it moves like a slow storm through your life, silent, deliberate, unstoppable. Once it arrives, nothing stays the same. You can't unsee. You can't unfeel. You start to notice the way people flinch when you no longer comply, how they withdraw when you stop saying yes. It's like watching masks fall, one by one, until only raw intention remains. And that's when you finally see, most people don't love you. They love what you give them. This realization doesn't make you bitter. It makes you awake. You begin to understand that love without boundaries is worship, and worship belongs only to truth. You were never meant to be someone's endless well, their healer, their home. You were meant to be whole, to give without losing yourself, to forgive without erasing your pain. The greatest act of love, perhaps, is to stop enabling what hurts you. Machiavelli wrote of princes and power, of how to lead men and survive deceit. But beneath his ruthless precision was a truth about the human heart. Those who refuse to understand human nature become its victims. And you've lived that lesson. You were the one who believed in potential while ignoring behavior. You saw what could be instead of what was. You forgave what should have been a warning. Seeing people as they are is not cruelty. It's liberation. It's letting go of the fantasy that love alone can fix what truth exposes. When you stop expecting others to be better just because you love them, you start to love yourself differently, honestly. You begin to treat your heart as something sacred, not disposable. You stop negotiating your worth with people who only see you through the lens of their convenience. The silence you carry now isn't emptiness. It's protection. It's a shield made of everything you've learned. You've stopped giving your words to those who twist them, your energy to those who drain it, your forgiveness to those who mistake it for permission. You've learned to pause before reacting, to breathe before responding, to retreat before breaking. In the stillness, you find something that noise could never give you control, not over others, but over yourself. There's a line between patience and self-betrayal, and now you can feel it in your bones. Every time you silence yourself for peace, that line burns a little brighter. Every time you choose to walk away rather than argue, that line strengthens. You are not cold, you are clear. You no longer fear losing people. You fear losing yourself again in trying to keep them. The irony of silence is that it speaks. It says, I see you. I know what you're doing, and I choose peace over participation. It's not revenge, it's revelation. When you stop responding, you stop feeding the illusion. When you stop explaining, you stop playing the role they've written for you. And suddenly, They don't know who they are without your reaction. That's how silence wins, by taking away the script. You begin to notice how silence changes everything. It brings out people's truth faster than confrontation ever could. Those who cared will come closer. Those who used you will vanish. Your calm becomes the test they cannot pass. Your quiet, once mistaken for weakness, becomes your loudest statement. You are no longer the one who bends to keep peace. You are the one who holds peace so firmly that others must rise to meet it. And in that space, the quiet between the end of who you were and the beginning of who you are, you feel something return. A small, steady pulse of self-respect. You realize that being feared and being respected aren't the same, but both begin with self-belief. When you respect yourself enough to say nothing, to walk away, to choose solitude over chaos, that's when others start to respect you too. It's not about becoming hard. It's about becoming whole. Your silence is not the absence of love. It's love turned inward. It's saying, I deserve peace, even if it means losing you. And that realization, that fierce, gentle truth, changes everything. When you begin to honor your silence, something remarkable happens. People who once drained you start to lose their power. The chaos that used to pull you into endless conversations, circular arguments, emotional storms, it no longer touches you. You've built an invisible wall, not of bitterness, but of clarity. You can watch the drama unfold without feeling the need to step in. You've finally learned that not every invitation to conflict deserves your attendance. You used to think that silence made you invisible, but now you see it's what makes you unshakable. Because silence is not absence. It's presence, refined. It's the point where emotion turns into awareness, where reaction transforms into understanding. When you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim your power. You stop begging to be seen, and in doing so, you finally see yourself. There's a quiet beauty in no longer defending your character. You used to fight to be understood, to be believed, to be seen as good. But now, you let your actions speak. You've realized that your peace is more valuable than your reputation. People will say what they want, they always do. Let them. The truth doesn't need witnesses to be true. The moment you stop chasing approval, you start to walk in authenticity. You stop existing for their perception and begin living for your own truth. You remember Machiavelli's wisdom, not the ruthless kind that people quote without context, but the human truth beneath it. The world respects what stands firm. Those who are unwavering in their self-respect command a presence that cannot be faked. To be feared in this new light doesn't mean to be cruel. It means to be clear. It means your boundaries are not suggestions. It means your silence is not an opening for negotiation. When you no longer bend to please, people feel it. The energy shifts. Those who thrived on your softness start to fade away, confused by the calm they can't control. They will test you. They will call you distant, selfish, cold. But you'll know better now. You'll know that self-respect always looks like defiance to those who benefited from your lack of it. You don't have to announce your evolution. You simply move differently. You speak slower. You pause longer. You observe more and react less. Your stillness unnerves those who feed on drama. Your calm disarms those who weaponize guilt. And in that space, you begin to notice something rare. Peace feels like power. The kind of power that doesn't dominate, doesn't need recognition, doesn't demand validation. It simply is. You start to understand what courage truly means. It's not loud. It's not about confrontation or aggression. Courage is quiet persistence. It's choosing truth when illusion is easier. It's walking alone rather than walking in circles. It's being misunderstood and still choosing integrity. It's realizing that the only approval worth having is the one you give yourself when you close your eyes at night and feel peace instead of regret. Fortune favors the bold, Machiavelli said, but he didn't mean reckless. He meant those brave enough to see clearly, to act without illusion, to stop waiting for permission to live authentically. You begin to see that silence is not passivity. It's preparation. It's patience turned into strategy, not for manipulation, but for mastery of self. of emotion, of reaction. You've stopped trying to control what others think, and instead, you've learned to master your own energy. You no longer chase closure, you create it. You no longer crave validation, you give it to yourself. You no longer fear solitude, you welcome it as sanctuary. And in that sanctuary, something sacred begins to bloom wisdom, the kind that doesn't come from books or advice, but from surviving yourself, from watching everything fall apart and realizing that what remains, the calm, the clarity, the stillness, that's who you truly are. People may never understand this version of you. That's okay. You're no longer living for understanding. You're living for truth. And truth doesn't need an audience. It only needs courage. The kind of courage that whispers instead of shouts, that observes instead of pleads, that simply says, I know who I am now. This silence, your silence has become your armor and your compass. It shields you from chaos, and it guides you toward peace. You no longer fear being misunderstood, because your peace matters more than being right. You no longer explain your boundaries because your life is the proof of them. You no longer confuse love with tolerance because now you know love without respect is just noise, and you've learned to live beyond noise. There comes a night, maybe it's quiet, maybe it's raining, when you sit alone and realize you no longer ache the same way. The voices that once echoed in your mind grow softer. The longing to be understood fades into something gentler acceptance. You start to see that all the pain, all the silence, all the moments you thought would break you, were shaping you instead. You're not bitter. You're simply awake. You've learned that winning doesn't always mean triumph in the eyes of others. Sometimes it means walking away without anger. Sometimes it means forgiving in silence. Sometimes it means saying nothing because nothing needs to be said. The ones who were meant to hear you already did, even if they pretended not to. You are no longer the person who explains, justifies, or pleads. You are the one who knows. You've outgrown the need to be seen, and now your peace shines louder than your voice ever could. You've become both lion and fox, strong enough to protect yourself, wise enough to move quietly. You no longer chase fairness, you embody it. You no longer fear solitude, you cherish it. The silence that once hurt has become your teacher. It taught you that truth doesn't always comfort, sometimes it liberates. It taught you that the highest form of love is not self-sacrifice, but self-respect. And now, as you breathe in this new stillness, you realize you didn't lose. You simply chose a different kind of victory, one that doesn't need applause, only peace. If this found you at the right time, if it spoke to the part of you that's tired, but still hopeful, stay a little longer. Share this moment with someone who needs it. Subscribe, not just to the channel, but to your own rebirth. You've already begun.